The bell above the door gave a half-hearted chime as Marcus Ling stepped into the Sunset Boulevard branch of Sweet Dreams Dessert Company. It was the kind of sound that didn't welcome you, it warned you. Faint and feeble like everything else in this branch that had somehow sunk into apathy. The space felt like it was holding its breath, weighed down by years of neglect. Marcus paused for a moment just past the threshold, his shoes sticking slightly to the floor. This wasn't the sweet, vibrant image of success he had been sold when he'd become co-owner just 3 months ago. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered overhead, casting shaky shadows on chipped countertops, and tables that bore the sticky legacy of far too many unclean days. The air carried a faint tang of artificial vanilla and stale mop water. The corporate reports hadn't told him any of this. The soul of the place had been quietly dying. He tugged his baseball cap lower, shielding his eyes from the staff's recognition, and walked to the counter, the frayed hem of his jeans brushing against his sneakers. On the outside, he was just another customer. But inside, his stomach tightened with disappointment and something darker. Betrayal. "Welcome to Sweet Dreams. What can I get you?" the teenage cashier mumbled, barely lifting her eyes from her phone. Her name tag, labeled Ashley in smeared marker, tilted crookedly across her chest. She didn't know who he was, and that was exactly the point. "Just a basic sundae, please. Vanilla with caramel topping." Marcus kept his voice light, casual, perfectly forgettable, but his pulse betrayed him, tapping anxiously against the inside of his wrist. He'd rehearsed this moment. Still, being undercover in a business he co-owned felt surreal. Like walking into your childhood home and not recognizing the walls. "It'll be $4.99, Ashley muttered, calling the order into the kitchen without lifting her gaze. Marcus took in every detail. Promotional posters were still hyping last summer's special flavors, faded and curling at the corners. Napkin dispensers sat empty, ignored like relics. The ceiling above sagged in places with brown water stains that told stories of past leaks never fixed. The math finally had a face. This branch wasn't just failing, it was screaming for help. But he hadn't come to play interior decorator. No, he came to figure out who was bleeding the dream dry from the inside. Sweet Dreams had once been the crown jewel of neighborhood dessert chains, a place that meant nostalgia, community, warmth. Now, with 23 locations and a thinning margin, the dream was slipping. Numbers didn't lie. Sales at this location were down nearly 20%. The complaints? Endless. And if this store tanked, the whole company would follow. "Order up," a voice called from the back. A young man appeared, his Sweet Dreams polo faded from too many washes and stained in a way that suggested he hadn't had time or energy for pride in weeks. Devin, the shift manager, set the Sundae down with a tired smile, one that had become muscle memory. He looked no older than 25, but the dark circles under his eyes added years. Marcus studied him as he handed over the plastic spoon. Devin looked like a guy who hadn't stopped running since the day he was handed the keys. Marcus scooped up a spoonful, expecting the soft, comforting sweetness of their signature caramel, but what hit his tongue instead stopped him cold. It was richer, smoother, a flavor too decadent, too premium to belong to Sweet Dreams. His spoon froze midair. This wasn't their caramel. This was Velveeta's Sweet's signature caramel, a topping that was infamous among dessert connoisseurs and unmistakable to anyone who had ever studied the market. Velveeta's Sweet, their top competitor, a high-end boutique dessert chain that charged 3 times as much and had been cutting into Sweet Dreams' customer base for years. Marcus's mind spiraled. How the hell had their rival's product ended up on one of their Sundaes? They weren't partners. Hell, they were barely civil. The two companies had been locked in a silent war for years, trading subtle jabs through press releases and conference snubs. This wasn't a coincidence. This was treason. "Excuse me," Marcus said lightly, spoon still in hand. "This caramel is amazing. Is it new?" Devin looked up from the counter he was wiping. Just for a second, something flickered behind his eyes, a flash of panic before it smoothed into a smile too polished to be real. "Oh, that?" he said quickly. "Yeah, we're doing a trial run with a new supplier. Management wanted to test out some premium options." The words came too fast, like they'd been waiting in his back pocket for the day someone asked. Marcus tilted his head, offering a small grin. "It's fantastic," he said, scooping another bite, his eyes locked on Devin. "Way better than the old stuff. Do you know who the supplier is?" Devin's hand froze. Not sure on the exact name. The regional supervisor handles that kind of stuff. It's all way above my pay grade." He forced a weak laugh, one that crumbled before it reached his eyes. Marcus nodded slowly, the storm building beneath his calm exterior. Corporate-handled supplier approvals, and Marcus himself had signed off on every one in the last month. There had been no new vendors, no premium caramel trial, no Velveeta sweet. That product should never have made it past the door. "Well," Marcus said with a final smile, "whoever they are, they're doing great work." "Yeah, me too," Devin muttered, turning away, already trying to disappear into the noise of routine. Marcus dropped a $5.00 bill into the tip jar, a deliberate overpay, and walked out into the humid afternoon. The door chimed behind him with the same dull clang, but now it felt different. Not tired, just ominous. Once out of sight, he pulled out his phone and dialed. His voice was low, urgent. "Sarah, it's Marcus. I need you to pull every supplier invoice from the Sunset Boulevard branch. I want to know who signed for what, when, and how, and I want it tonight." He hung up without waiting for confirmation. His fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from clarity. Something was very, very wrong, and Marcus Lang wasn't just here to fix it. He was going to burn it clean. "Also, pull Devin Martinez's employment file," Marcus said, still watching the Sweet Dreams storefront from across the street. Behind the glass, Devin stood stiffly, eyes locked on him through the reflection of the morning sun. There was no smile this time, just worry painted across his face like an unwanted truth. "Is everything all right, Mr. Lang?" his assistant asked, her voice carrying the professional calm he relied on. "I'm not sure yet," Marcus muttered, jaw clenched. "But I have a sinking feeling we're about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes." That evening, the city lights blinked like restless thoughts outside Marcus's office window. Inside, under the dim glow of his desk lamp, files lay open like puzzle pieces begging to be assembled. Devin Martinez, 24 years old, employed at Sweet Dreams for 3 years, no red flags, no past issues. On paper, he was solid. Recently promoted after the former manager quit abruptly just 6 weeks earlier. No notes, no warning. Marcus scanned the supplier records next, eyes narrowing with each page. Everything appeared standard, scheduled deliveries from pre-approved vendors. Nothing out of place, nothing that said Velveeta sweet. But his memory of that taste was too vivid, too specific. He knew that caramel like a musician knows a single note in a sea of sound. It wasn't just an error, it was a violation. How could a store that couldn't even afford new napkin dispensers be splurging on luxury toppings that retailed for $12.00 a jar? It made no sense, unless someone else was footing the bill, or hiding the cost. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin as he stared out over the glowing skyline. In 15 years in this industry, Marcus had seen every dirty trick in the book. Employee theft, backdoor deals with suppliers, shady managers manipulating inventory. But this felt orchestrated, too clean, too confident, like a scheme rehearsed over time. With a slow exhale, he picked up his phone and tapped the contact he rarely used. Jim Murphy. They'd cracked a case together once, uncovering a corrupt purchasing manager who'd been siphoning kickbacks for years. It was messy, but they'd brought it to light and saved the company millions. Jim, it's Marcus Lang. I might need your help again. What kind of help? Marcus looked down at the small caramel jar sitting on his desk, the Velveeta sweet label pristine, mocking. He had picked it up on his way home. One taste had confirmed it. It was the exact product he'd been served at Sweet Dreams that afternoon. There was no doubt anymore. The kind where someone's messing with my business, he said, voice steady. And I need to know who's pulling the strings. Corporate sabotage, insider collusion, or maybe just desperate employees trying to make a buck. Whatever it was, Marcus wasn't going to sit back and watch it burn. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, eyes hardening. I'm going back in. And this time, I'm not coming out without the truth. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the Sunset Boulevard location before the city had shaken off its sleep. He wore the costume of a working-class man, faded khakis, a worn polo shirt and scuffed boots, in one hand a thermos of lukewarm coffee, in the other a backpack with a notebook, gloves, and resolve. He had spent the night rehearsing his new identity, Marcus Johnson, a part-time warehouse worker between gigs, looking for some extra hours. He entered through the employee entrance, where Ashley met him with surprise in her eyes. You the temp worker Devin called about? That's me, he replied, injecting his voice with artificial cheer. Ready to work. Ashley gave a small nod. In the dim morning light, she seemed more awake, less distracted, less like the phone-obsessed teen from yesterday. Devin emerged with a clipboard and his usual exhausted expression. Glad you made it. We're short-staffed today. I'll put you on prep, toppings, cleaning, some light inventory. Perfect. It was the best-case scenario, total access to the behind-the-scenes operation. The hours trickled by, and Marcus observed everything, how supplies were handled, which products were opened, which ones weren't. He wiped down sticky tables and refilled napkins with quiet diligence. But it wasn't until his lunch break that things truly shifted. The break room was small, its mismatched chairs clustered around a plastic table. A humming refrigerator tried and failed to cool the room. Marcus sat at the edge, pretending to scroll through his phone as two employees chatted nearby. Tyler, a lanky college kid with paint-speckled hands, and Maria, a soft-spoken woman with tired eyes and gentle movements. Ignorant. I'm telling you, it's crazy money, Tyler said, unwrapping a gas station sandwich. $20 extra every time we use those jars instead of the regular crap. Maria's brows pulled tight. But what if someone finds out? She whispered. I need this job, Tyler. I can't get fired, not now. No one's gonna find out, Tyler insisted. Devin said the more we use, the bigger the bonuses. It's between us and the regional guy. Corporate doesn't even know. Regional guy? Marcus's heart thudded. There was no regional supervisor with that kind of authority. Any supplier change had to go through corporate and Marcus himself. Cash every Friday, Tyler went on. Just log the fake inventory and we're golden. Easy money. Customers are happier, too. That stuff's 10 times better. Maria hesitated, chewing her lip. I don't know. It just feels wrong. Tyler shrugged. Look, we're not hurting anyone. We're giving people better ice cream. It's a win-win. But Marcus knew better. This wasn't about better service. It was about control. Someone was planting a competitor's product in his stores, paying his employees off the books, and covering their tracks with fake numbers. The break room door creaked open, and Devin stepped in. Everything good in here? He asked, eyes scanning them sharply. Just talking about the schedule, Tyler said smoothly. Devin's gaze lingered on Marcus. Too long. "How's your first day going, Marcus?" "So far, so good," Marcus replied evenly. "Learning a lot." Devin gave a small nod. "Great. When you're done, I need help in the storage room." The others quickly scattered, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts, and a storm building behind his calm. The bonus payments, the forged logs, the secret caramel. Someone had turned his store into a testing ground for something much bigger, and he was about to walk into the lion's den. The storage room held more answers than Marcus expected, and not all of them would be easy to face. As Marcus and Devin moved boxes of supplies in the narrow storage room, the air grew thick, not from dust, but from unspoken tension. Devin's casual tone was a mask, but the questions he asked cut with purpose. "So where'd you say you worked before this?" Devin asked, lifting a case of napkins and setting it aside. Marcus didn't flinch. "Warehouse jobs mostly. Couple restaurants here and there." He delivered the line effortlessly. He'd spent hours rehearsing his cover story to the smallest detail. "Which restaurants?" Devin pressed, voice casual but eyes sharp. "Small joints, mom-and-pop type places," Marcus replied, faking a grunt of exertion as he lifted a box that didn't need grunting. "Nothing you'd recognize." Devin was silent for a beat too long. "You know," he finally said, placing a hand on a shelf like he owned the room, "we get all kinds here, mystery shoppers, corporate rats. I can usually sniff 'em out." Marcus's heartbeat jumped in his chest, but he kept his face blank, reaching for another box like he hadn't heard the subtle accusation. "Sounds a little paranoid," he offered with a tight smile. "Maybe," Devin said. "But when you've got something worth protecting, you learn to trust your instincts." His voice carried a sharper edge now, no longer friendly, just controlled, dangerous. "The people I work with," Devin added, lowering his voice, "they don't like surprises. They pay for loyalty. They pay even more for silence." Marcus felt the words settle like lead in his chest. This wasn't some petty side hustle. This was something bigger. Something dangerous. And Devin was no longer just a tired manager. He was a gatekeeper to something that went deeper than anyone at corporate suspected. That evening, Marcus sat alone in his car across the street from the store. The sky bled orange behind the buildings as Sweet Dreams closed for the day. At exactly 6:00 p.m., a white, unmarked van rolled into the alley behind the shop. Its only marking, a small, stylized V near the door, Velveeta Sweet's unmistakable insignia. A man in his 50s stepped out, wearing a Velveeta Sweet jacket zipped halfway up. No hesitation, no secrecy. He moved with the confidence of someone who belonged. Devin met him at the back entrance. They exchanged a brief conversation and then an envelope. Thick, bulky, cash most likely. No receipts, no invoices, just payment for silence. Marcus's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He waited until the van pulled out of the alley, then tailed it through the quiet city streets. The route was short, only 3 blocks, to another Sweet Dreams location on Maple Street. Same van, same routine, a quick handoff at the back door, another envelope, another piece of the puzzle. By the time Marcus made it home, his thoughts were a cyclone of fury and disbelief. This wasn't Devin freelancing. This was organized, coordinated. Someone had turned multiple Sweet Dreams locations into distribution points for Velveeta Sweet products, and someone was funding the operation without a single trace in the books. But why? Who would want to undermine a company from the inside with such precision? And more importantly, how many people were in on it? Sleep was out of the question. At 5:00 a.m. Marcus entered the corporate headquarters 2 hours before anyone else. The building was ghostly in the early light, just the low hum of the security system and the occasional flicker from emergency lights casting shadows on the polished floors. In his office, he locked the door behind him. The night before, he had made a quiet call to Rachel Chen, the company's IT security chief. Trusted, brilliant, discreet. "I need a full audit," he told her. "Payroll, supplier payments, delivery logs, credit card activity. Something isn't adding up." Rachel didn't question him. After 8 years, she knew better. Now, with 3 monitors glowing in front of him, Marcus dug into the data. Spreadsheets, bank records, order forms, everything that could explain how someone was hijacking his company without anyone noticing. The first red flag was in payroll. 17 employees across 6 stores had received unusual performance bonuses ranging from $200.00 to $500.00 starting 3 months ago. On paper, the numbers didn't scream fraud, but when Marcus cross-referenced the names with their store performance, the pattern emerged. All 17 worked at locations officially reporting lower than average sales. That wasn't just suspicious, it was impossible. Stores in decline don't hand out bonuses, not without reason, and Marcus had never approved any such program. Digging deeper into the purchase orders made his stomach churn. Every document listed their standard inventory, basic vanilla, chocolate, caramel toppings from the same approved vendors. Nothing changed on the surface. But the delivery logs told a different story. Twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday, a company called Premium Food Distributors was dropping off supplies at the same 6 locations, a company that, according to their system, didn't exist. No vendor profile, no payment history, no paper trail. Marcus immediately dialed Rachel. "Can you pull every payment we've made to Premium Food Distributors in the last 6 months?" She ran the query while he waited, tapping his pen against his desk with mounting dread. "That's strange," she said. "There's nothing. No payments. Not a single invoice." Marcus's chest tightened. "They're making deliveries. I've seen the vans myself. If we're not paying them, then who is?" And that was the question that terrified him the most. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus built a timeline. The phantom deliveries started 10 weeks ago, exactly when their sales took an unexpected nosedive. The performance bonuses followed 2 weeks later, and then came the final thread that snapped everything into focus. The corporate credit card of one man, Regional Operations Manager Dave Hendris, showed a series of irregular cash withdrawals, $23,000 in the last 2 months alone. Dave Hendris, a name Marcus hadn't thought much about in years. 15 years with the company, steady, reliable, but passed over for promotion twice, always professional, always quiet. He was responsible for supplier relationships in the Western region, which included all 6 compromised stores. Marcus's fingers hovered over his keyboard, about to dive deeper into Dave's records, when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Lang, this is Jennifer Walsh. I used to work for Sweet Dreams." Her voice was shaky, cautious. "I'm sorry, what location?" "The Maple Street store." And in that instant, Marcus knew. She wasn't calling by accident. She was calling because she had something to confess. "I was fired 6 weeks ago for insubordination," Jennifer began, her voice brittle, like it had cracked from holding back too long. "But that's not why I'm calling." Marcus leaned forward in his chair, his senses sharpened. The name Maple Street had already tied too many knots in this tangled thread. "I saw your picture in the paper last week, in the business section," she continued, "and I've been debating for days whether I should reach out." "I'm glad you did," Marcus said gently. "What can you tell me, Jennifer?" Her words came faster now, as if they'd been bottled up too long. "I was fired because I asked questions, too many, about Dave Hendris. He kept meeting with this older guy in a van, always Fridays right after my shift ended. They never went inside, always with an envelope." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Same pattern. Same man. Same timing. Could you describe the man? He asked. Older, maybe mid-50s, Jennifer said, trying to recall the details. Always wore jackets with food company logos. Not ours, though. Some other company. He'd give Dave envelopes, and then Dave would pull our manager aside and talk about special products for premium customers. Marcus already knew the answer, but still he asked, "Did you ever catch the name of the company?" Jennifer hesitated. "I tried once. I got close, and that's when I got in trouble. Dave saw me, told the manager I was nosy, said I had a bad attitude. 3 days later, she was out the door." Marcus swallowed hard. "Jennifer, this is important. Would you meet with me, face to face?" I don't know," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "Dave threatened me when I left. Said if I stirred up trouble, he'd make sure I never worked in food again. He has connections. People are scared of him." A chill settled over Marcus's spine. This wasn't just internal fraud, it was corporate intimidation. "What if I told you this is bigger than just your store?" he said. "That Dave might be part of something that could hurt a lot of innocent people, including your former co-workers?" There was a long pause. Then, finally, Jennifer spoke again. "There's something else," she said. "The week before I got fired, I walked past Dave's office and saw his email screen. He didn't know I was there. I only caught part of the subject line. It said Phase 2, expansion to all locations by year end." Marcus's breath caught in his chest. Phase 2. This wasn't isolated. It wasn't even regional anymore. It was a plan, a strategy to infiltrate every store. "Jennifer, I need to meet you today," Marcus said. "I'll make sure you're protected, but I need everything you remember." "Oh." After a moment of silence, she whispered, "Okay, but Mr. Lang, be careful who you trust. Dave has friends inside. Not everyone is who they say they are." The call ended, and Marcus stared at the screen in front of him. Dave Hendriss's file glowed under the fluorescent lights. 15 years with the company, glowing performance reviews, full access to everything, supplier databases, payroll, employee files. He was the perfect inside man. Marcus reached for his phone to call legal, but his hand stopped mid-air. Jennifer's warning echoed in his head like a whisper in a storm. Not everyone is who they seem to be. If Dave had inside help, calling the wrong person could blow everything. He needed to play this close to the chest. For the next few hours, Marcus prepared for what might be the most important and dangerous conversation of his career. He arranged to meet Jennifer across town at a quiet coffee shop far from any Sweet Dreams location. But first, there was one final piece of his undercover operation left to complete. He returned to Sunset Boulevard under the same disguise. Marcus Johnson, the temp worker with a good attitude and a made-up past. Devon greeted him at the back with a tired smile, the same mask as before. But this time, Marcus noticed something new in his eyes, a weariness that bordered on fear. "You're back," Devon said, tossing him a rag. "Thought maybe the work scared you off." "Nah," Marcus replied with a grin. "I need the money. Besides, I'm starting to like it here. The people are interesting." "Huh." Devon's smile twitched. "Yeah, we're a tight group. We look out for each other." The morning was uneventful on the surface. Marcus moved through tasks with mechanical efficiency, wiping down equipment, replenishing supplies. But his eyes were always scanning, his ears always listening. He watched Tyler and Maria closely. Each time the premium toppings were used, there was an unspoken exchange. Quick glances, subtle nods. They were complicit, but afraid. 3 times, Devon stepped outside to make phone calls. Each time, he checked over his shoulder. Then came the breakthrough. While organizing the storage room during his lunch break, Marcus heard muffled voices drifting in from the alley. He crept to the small window and peeked through a tear in the blinds. Devin stood outside, talking to the same man from the Velveeta van, the one Marcus had followed. This time, he caught words that made his blood run cold. "The temp worker's asking too many questions," Devin said, voice tight. "What kind of questions?" the older man asked. His voice was gravelly, confident, commanding. "To what do it say? About the suppliers?" "The toppings? Yesterday he kept asking about the caramel like he knew something." Marcus leaned in, heart pounding. "Maybe it's time to let him go," the man said. "Create a reason, make it look like theft or insubordination. Dave's done it before." Dave. There it was. Confirmation. "I don't know, Rick," Devin replied. "This feels different. What if he's not just a temp? A name to match the face." Rick didn't blink. "Look, Devin. Cold feet get people hurt. You signed up for this. The bonuses, the cash. You think that comes without risk?" "I thought it was about better product," Devin whispered. "You didn't say anything about corporate espionage." Rick laughed, a hollow, humorless sound. "Kid, you're helping us destroy sweet dreams from the inside. What did you think this was? We bury them in their own systems, drive up their costs, wreck their brand, and then Velveeta buys them out for pennies." Marcus's fingers curled into fists. "And phase 2? Rick added. "It launches next month. Dave's got 12 more stores lined up. 6 months from now, they'll be hooked on our supply chain, and when it all collapses, we'll own them." "What about the employees?" Devin asked quietly. "Tyler? Maria?" "They'll be fine. Velveeta always needs good people, loyal ones." That was enough. Marcus stepped back from the window, chest heaving. He waited in the cold silence of the freezer, hands trembling, not from fear, but fury. Devin walked in a minute later, whistling like nothing had happened. "Hey, Devin," Marcus said, turning slowly. "Can I ask you something?" Devin stiffened. "Sure, what's up?" "In the caramel topping we've been using. It's really good. I was thinking of buying some for my girlfriend. You know what brand it is?" Devin's face drained of color. "Shot." For a long moment, the air in the freezer felt thick enough to choke on. Neither man spoke. The hum of the refrigeration unit was the only sound between them. Until Devin took a slow step forward. His expression shifted. The panic that had flashed across his face moments earlier drained away, replaced by something colder. Smarter. More dangerous. "You know what, Marcus?" Devin said, his voice low and steady. "I think I've finally figured out what's been bothering me about you." Marcus didn't move. His pulse thundered in his ears. "What's that?" he asked, playing dumb, hoping he sounded calm even as his stomach dropped. "You don't act like someone who needs this job. You act like someone watching a movie they've already seen, just waiting to see who gets caught." Devon took another step closer, his words now barely a whisper. "You ask too many questions. You notice things most guys on temp wages wouldn't give a damn about. And..." He glanced at the stack of caramel containers. "You know exactly who that topping belongs to." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the ribs. There it was, the curtain pulled back, being like a battered soldier. "I don't know what you're talking about," Marcus tried, but the denial was thin, brittle. Even as it left his mouth, he knew Devin didn't buy it. Devin's smile was different now, not tired, not friendly. Predatory. "See? That's what I thought," Devin said. "You're either a corporate rat or worse, working for the competition. Either way, you're a liability." Inside, Marcus's thoughts went into overdrive. His cover was blown. He could run, but that would make things worse. He could lie again, but Devon had already seen through him. There was only one move left. A move that could either blow the entire operation wide open or blow up in his face. Marcus slowly pulled his phone from his pocket. The moment was quiet, electric. "I'm not a temp," he said. "My name is Marcus Lang." He held up his phone, flipping to his Sweet Dreams corporate ID. "I own this company." Devon's eyes widened. For a half-second, he looked like someone who'd been struck in the chest. Then his gaze hardened, recalculating. "Well, look at that," Devon said, his voice almost amused. "The boss man himself. Rick's gonna want to hear about this." "Rick already knows more than he should," Marcus replied. "The question is, are you ready to explain to a federal judge why you're part of a conspiracy to sabotage your own employer?" Devon let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You think this ends with me? You have no clue how deep this runs. We've got people in your accounting department, legal, even your boardroom. You can't trust anyone." Marcus felt it like a gut punch. That if that was true, everything he'd built, all of it, could already be compromised from the inside. But there was something Devon didn't know. Marcus tapped the screen of his phone. "Actually, I've been recording this entire conversation." Devon's face blanched. "You can't. That's illegal." "No," Marcus said, calm and firm. "This is California. One-party consent. I'm legally allowed to record any conversation I'm part of, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage is a federal offense." Before Devon could react, Marcus sent a text with a single tap. "Emergency. Execute Plan Zebra." He'd created that protocol years ago at his former company, just in case. Within minutes, his legal team would initiate injunctions, his IT department would begin locking down systems, and trusted security agents would be en route to Sweet Dreams locations across the state. Devon fumbled for his phone, typing rapidly, probably alerting Rick, maybe even Dave. But Marcus had one more ace. He had 20 minutes of recorded evidence. Voices, confessions, names. "You made a mistake, Devon," Marcus said, slipping the phone into his pocket. "And that mistake is going to be the reason Sweet Dreams survives." Devon's skin had gone pale. "You'll regret this. Not as much as you will." At that moment, the front door chimed, and 3 people entered with the slow, measured steps of people trained not to run. Sarah Martinez, an FBI agent Marcus had worked with years earlier. Beside her stood James Wright, Marcus's corporate lawyer, and Tom Chin, head of security. "Devon Martinez," Agent Martinez said, flipping her badge. "We'd like to talk to you about your relationship with premium food distributors and Velveeta Sweet." Devon looked like he might be sick. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right," Martinez replied calmly. "But first, we're securing this location as a potential crime scene." The next 3 hours were a blur of flashing lights, sealed boxes, interviews, and nervous staff. By the afternoon, Marcus was back in his corporate boardroom, drained, furious, and more focused than he'd ever been. Only 4 board members sat around the table, the ones he trusted without hesitation, a painfully small group. "How bad is it?" asked Patricia Sue, Sweet Dreams' longest-serving director. "Worse than I thought," Marcus said, spreading files across the table. He pointed to 6 flagged locations on a digital map, whose stores were just the test run. "We're looking at a multi-phase attack on our entire company. Internal sabotage, external coordination, and deliberate fraud designed to collapse our profit margins." James looked up from his notes. "We've started a full forensic audit. We'll uncover the moles." "And the financial damage?" Patricia asked, her voice tight. Marcus tapped the keyboard, bringing up spreadsheets. "Over $200,000 0 cents in the past quarter. Unauthorized bonuses, fake inventory, product substitutions. But that's not the worst part, he added. If this goes public, our reputation could be destroyed. Tom Chin entered the room then, face grave. We've got a problem, he said. FBI just raided Dave Hendriss's home. He's gone. Left this morning with suitcases. His credit card was used at San Diego International Airport. Marcus felt the floor shift under him. He's running. And it gets worse, Tom continued. Dave had admin-level access to everything. Payroll, supplier systems, even customer data. If he's working with Velveeta, Patricia said, standing abruptly, they could own us by next quarter. We need to go public, she demanded. Control the narrative. No, James interrupted. If we go public without all the facts, we'll destroy ourselves faster than Velveeta ever could. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Agent Martinez. Need you at the field office now, bring your lawyer. An hour later, the corporate boardroom gave way to the clinical chill of a windowless FBI interrogation room. Agent Martinez placed a thick folder on the metal table. Mr. Lang, she said, Devon has agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency. Marcus's hands clenched. This operation's been in the works for over 2 years, she said. Velveeta's goal wasn't just to compete with Sweet Dreams. They wanted to destroy you, then acquire you at rock-bottom value. Marcus swallowed hard. How many people are involved? 15, she said. Across multiple levels of your company. Devon gave us everything. Names, financial records, timelines. She slid a document across the table. Here's where we begin. But here's the part that caught us off guard, Agent Martinez said, her tone turning dry. When we contacted Velveeta Suites corporate headquarters to inform them of our investigation, they claimed to have no knowledge of this operation. Marcus blinked. For the first time since this ordeal began, he was genuinely surprised. They're throwing their own people under the bus? He asked. Looks that way, Martinez replied. According to their CEO, Rick Morrison, the man Devon identified as his primary contact was a rogue regional manager, unauthorized, independent. They've already terminated him and are cooperating with our investigation. You believe them? Marcus asked, eyeing her closely. Martina's smile was thin, humorless. Let's just say, we're not taking their word for it. We'll be auditing Velveeta's corporate structure with a microscope. She leaned in slightly. But for now, Mr. Lang, your job is to clean house. As Marcus and James stepped out into the evening air, the weight of the last few days settled heavily on Marcus's shoulders. Betrayal. Corruption. A direct attempt to dismantle everything he'd built from the inside. But somehow he was still standing, and now he had the proof to expose it all. What's our next move? James asked as they descended into the parking garage. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to his PR director's number. We go public, he said. Full transparency. Press conference tomorrow morning. I want the public, our customers, our competitors, everyone, to hear this story from me. James raised an eyebrow. That's a bold play. It could shatter consumer confidence. Or, Marcus replied, his voice hardening, it could show people exactly what kind of company Sweet Dreams really is. One that doesn't hide. One that fights. They drove back in silence, but Marcus's mind wasn't still. Devon and his accomplices had made a critical miscalculation. They assumed Sweet Dreams was just a brand, but to Marcus it was personal, and no one, no competitor, no corrupt executive, was going to take it away from him. The next morning, the press conference room at Sweet Dreams headquarters was packed. Local media, national business outlets, even food industry bloggers filled every seat. Bright lights beat down on the podium. Marcus stood backstage, heart pounding, straightening his tie in the mirror one last time. You ready for this? James asked. Marcus looked at himself. Not just a CEO, but a man who had walked through fire and come out sharper, clearer, stronger. "As ready as I'll ever be," he said. "Let's go save our company." He stepped onto the stage. The camera flashes were blinding, but when his vision cleared, he faced them all, reporters, skeptics, believers, with calm intensity. "Good morning. My name is Marcus Lang, and I'm the CEO of Sweet Dreams Dessert Company," he began, his voice unwavering. 3 days ago, I discovered that my company was the target of a carefully planned, multi-layered corporate espionage operation, one designed to destroy us from the inside. For 20 minutes, he held the room in rapt silence. He detailed the scheme, the forged inventory records, the bribes, the fake suppliers. He spoke of going undercover, exposing the Velveeta connection, and how his own staff had unknowingly been swept into the sabotage. "I want to be clear," Marcus said. "Many of the employees involved were not criminals. They were manipulated, coerced, given envelopes of cash and told it was just a new supplier trial. They were as much victims as they were participants." A reporter raised a hand. "Mr. Lang, how do you expect customers to trust Sweet Dreams moving forward?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Trust is not a promise. It's a practice, and starting today, we're earning it back." Behind him, a screen flickered on, displaying a bold new initiative, the Sweet Dreams Transparency Promise. "We are implementing a full, real-time tracking system for every ingredient, every delivery, every supplier, available to the public at any time," Marcus announced. "Nothing will be hidden, ever again." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. He wasn't finished. Anonymous employee reporting hotlines, third-party auditing of every vendor, regular compliance checks, and, most importantly, recognition for those who did the right thing. Anonymous employee reporting online. Taps. He looked toward the front row. Tyler Morrison and Maria Santos, 2 part-time employees who came forward voluntarily, have been promoted to full-time positions with benefits and tuition assistance. That's the kind of integrity we reward here. The crowd turned to see Tyler and Maria seated together, stunned and teary-eyed. They had come forward after Devon's arrest, not knowing if it would cost them everything. Now it had earned them everything. "And Jennifer Walsh," Marcus continued, his voice growing emotional, "who was wrongfully terminated for asking the right questions. She is now our Director of Employee Relations. Her bravery helped stop this plot, and her values are the future of this company." Cameras flashed toward Jennifer, seated quietly in the second row, tears slipping down her cheeks. "What about the financial impact?" someone called from the back. Marcus nodded grimly. "We lost around $300,000, 0 cents in 6 months. But this press conference alone has generated over $2 million, 0 cents in franchise interest. Turns out, people appreciate honesty." He smiled faintly. "And as for Velveeta Sweet, while they've claimed this was a rogue operation, they are cooperating with the FBI and implementing their own internal reforms. Let me be clear, competition should make us better, not destroy us." The Q&A session continued for another hour. Cybersecurity, employee mental health, supply chain ethics. Marcus answered every question with clarity and conviction. But his closing words would echo in business schools for years. "A Sundae nearly cost me my company, but it also revealed what needed to change. Sweet Dreams isn't just surviving this. We're becoming the company we were always meant to be." 6 months later, Marcus stood in the newly renovated Sunset Boulevard store, the very place where it all began. Fresh paint gleamed on the walls, New equipment hummed with precision, and more importantly, his employees smiled with pride, not exhaustion. Devin Martinez was serving an 18-month federal sentence. Dave Hendris had been extradited from Mexico and was awaiting trial. Rick Morrison had cut a deal with prosecutors, his career in ruins. But Marcus didn't care about the prosecutions anymore. The real victory was in the culture that now defined Sweet Dreams. 28 locations, 5 new stores opened since the scandal, employee satisfaction at an all-time high, customer trust restored, and even stronger than before. Ashley, the disinterested cashier from day one, was now assistant manager. Tyler had enrolled in college part-time while working full-time. Maria had been promoted to training coordinator, mentoring new hires with quiet strength and fierce loyalty. As Marcus stood at the counter, savoring a caramel sundae made with Sweet Dreams' new proprietary topping, a recipe they now owned, he let the moment settle in. What began as betrayal had become rebirth. Sometimes the worst crisis is the one that reveals who you truly are. And Sweet Dreams had become more than a dessert company. It was a symbol, a promise, a reminder that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is always the sweetest reward.